So in the background, you're just going to see some of the highlights of certain players that have not only made this team by surprise, but also earned their spot. And I'm pretty proud of some of the people that have made this roster. Certain players like Jack Sanborn on the team. Sanborn was flying all over the field in multiple games this preseason, which shows that although we have 4 middle linebackers on the roster, we can move them around the field. We can leverage them on outside linebacker positions for rush packages. We can have them play pass coverage, switch them in and out to allow us to work on their strengths. As Jack Sanborn and Micah McFadden are really downhill tacklers, I want to make sure that we mix them up with Muasau, who's starting to become a very good all-around player and starting to shadow and mimic things of Bobby Okereke. When you look at other places right now or other parts of the line, I am recognizing at this time we probably have to keep certain players in order. With a 3-4 defense, I could see myself holding maybe 5 players on the D-line. And each one of those players are going to hold a very, very key and important spot. Certain players right now that I just don't feel like I'm really okay with, and I think unfortunately we're going to have to make surprising cuts, and that's going to be a player like Jordan Riley. So Jordan Riley was drafted in the late rounds, and he had a lot of potential of really going off. But I feel like at this point, he hasn't really done much in the 2 years that he's been here. And I feel like there's other pieces that we have now that can really move forward. So we will no longer have Jordan Riley on this team. Some other players that I think have earned some chances down the road, it would be a player that was cut by the Rams in Oshwan Mathis. I really feel like that's a player that could help us out down the road if need be for depth. And another guy is a player that was cut from the Cowboys, and that was Viliami Fehoko. So I really feel like those are 2 players right there that could help us with depth down the road and allow us to feel okay. Now, with that being said, you know, we are going to lean on a rookie, and this rookie that was a UDFA that we found after the draft. We drafted him in the 4th round, was Jared Ivey. He's a 4th rounder out of Ole Miss. So he's going to be helping all up and down, both ends there, left end and right end, to help supply some depth. And he's going to get a lot of playing time behind Elijah Chapman and Joseph Asai. Now, Joseph Asai, he is coming over from the Bengals, more of a finesse power. He's more of a power guy, but I feel like Joseph Asai, coming over from a culture like the Bengals, that's hard-nosed football over there in the AFC North. I think that's going to help us out in that space. Now, the defensive tackle area, this is one where I was just hoping that the guys would fight a little bit more and really kind of separate themselves from this spot. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing much there. And one guy, right, that was drafted by the Giants that just has not worked out due to injuries is DJ Davidson. So we will no longer see DJ Davidson or Jordan Riley as a Giant. It's just one of those moves right now where we just have to be okay with that. Now, with that move right there, that gives me with potentially 6 players, but we still have to think about the cuts that we have to make at this time, because there was 21 cuts that we had to make. Certain other players that I feel are going to really make some good leeway here is a player that we signed in the free agency. That was Michael Hoecht from the Rams, 6'4", 310, just a big dude with good speed on him. That type of power ability, we can put him on the line if need be, but we also have him backing up players like Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns for rush packages. So I'm hoping that he continues to do work in that space there. Now, there are some other things here that we are going to have to make decisions on, and unfortunately, in the DB role or in the DB group, there's going to be a lot of cuts. Certain players that I can see myself keeping on the team or the practice squad would be Kalen King from Penn State. I think he has some good potential there as a good slot corner. Another guy that I think could potentially do some work down the road is DJ James, another slot guy who can kind of play on the outside. And by doing that, that leaves room for 6 DBs. Now, one player that I am really watching closely is Cordell Flott. I really haven't seen him play that well during the preseason. I'm going to have him probably play slot 2 or 3. And then let some other guys step up. One guy that I feel like is going to be a really, really nice piece is Karan Prunty, number 38 on the corner position. He had a pretty decent preseason with 9 tackles, 1 tackles for loss, and he had a pick. This 6th rounder here from NC&T is very, very surprising to me. He's got good length on him, good speed, and I think he has the ability to truly step up. So we're going to see him out there. He's going to probably be competing on the outside with Trey Hawkins, and we'll kind of see what happens in that space. When you look at the free safety role, we had 4 free safeties on the roster, and unfortunately, you got to make certain moves there. Israel Mukaamo was a guy on our practice squad that I put on the team and wanted to see if he can make it work, and unfortunately it's just not going to be the case. Another guy right now that I am looking to cut is JT Woods. Unfortunately, I just don't see him making the squad. And surprising but not surprising right now is probably moving Christopher Smith to the practice squad. I feel like he could do something down the road, but the 4 DBs in Pinnock, or safeties in Pinnock, Makuba, who we drafted, Dane Belton and Tyler Nubin, I think those guys are going to be pretty freaking awesome. So I know we're going to be okay in that space there. It is going to get harder to cut players, but the O-line is a key spot where I have to make those decisions. One player that I just don't see making the team, he's always hurt, is Joshua Azudu. Unfortunately, he can't make the practice squad. He's been on the team for a while, and as much as I like him, he was just not a project that worked out. With the acquisition of Braden Daniels, I feel like that's going to really help us out down the road and be a decent swing tackle / just backup in general. I saw some really good players that were UDFAs. Giovanni El Hadi is going to be on our practice squad. I think that's going to help us out. As far as the centers are concerned, JMS kept getting hurt throughout the preseason. So knowing that he is having those kind of problems there, I am worried about trying to let go of certain players. Now, we could just roll with those 3 guards there, but if we're going to do that, I know I have to make decisions in other places. So there was a UDFA in Jeremy James that I feel like we could put him on the practice squad and help us out in that space. But this also means that I'm going to have to make decisions on other players. Now, Evan Neal is fighting for a spot right now. Evan Neal is not a bad guy. He's just not the player for us. And I think we're going to have to make a decision on trading him real soon. It started to get hard for us as far as who we can cut and who we can move on from. And as I started to trim this roster down to 53, I started to feel like we're going to have a very small group of D linemen that are going to be on this starting 53. And we will go ahead and let Siaki Ika also head to the practice squad. I feel like Elijah Simmons is a very good player. Elijah Simmons was a player that I thought about drafting. He's 6'2", 340 pounds. And I think he's got the pieces there to really help us out. We struck very good, we struck oil with Elijah Chapman, and I feel like we might be able to do that again with Elijah Simmons this year. So this O-line is not that expensive, but we got some bigger dudes, some guys that can help out, because I feel like the linebackers that we have quite a bit of linebackers. They're going to really get to work this year. So not a bad situation. but I feel pretty good about that. Now, we were left with like 3 players that I still had to cut, and that was not that difficult for me because there was some room in the tight end core. Malik Carr was a UDFA that I picked up that I was like, let's try him out, let's see what we can do. But Malik Carr honestly didn't do anything too surprisingly for us in the preseason, so we'll go ahead and move him to the practice squad and feel comfortable with that space. I also looked at Cameron Latu, thinking he was going to do some work, but what we're going to do in this team is we're going to allow our fullback that we signed in the offseason, former Cowboy Hunter Luepke, play that tight end 3. So we're going to have him out there running around. He's got good speed on him, and I think Bellinger and Theo are going to do just fine. Like I said, as we started to trim this team, I had to realize, okay, we're going to have to make decisions in certain places that kind of scare me. And you know, I really wanted to keep certain players on this team. I felt like we really made some good moves, but we were just hurting in certain spots. And I've added a couple players on the practice squad, and we started to fill the roster. When it came down to it, I had to decide, out of all the players that I did put onto the roster, was there anybody I was willing to cut? And when I looked at the cuts, I realized that Malik Carr was the odd man out. Now, the reason why I went ahead and cut Malik Carr is because the center that I have that I went ahead and signed out of the for the UDFA, Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State, I think he's got potential to really do some work. So I want to make sure that we have some good depth in the O-line, and it allows us to have some of these players kind of grow in the practice squad space. So, you know, all in all, I think we have some good mix up there. We got a halfback that I have on the practice squad. Cameron Latu barely made the practice squad, but I want to see what we can do there just in case one of our guys gets hurt in the tight end crew. We have El Hadi, McLaughlin, James, and Trapilo as our offensive line that'll be in the practice squad. I have 3 DBs, DJ James, Kalen King, and free safety Chris Smith on the practice squad. And then I have D linemen there, Oshwan Mathis, Balima Fahoko, and Siaki Ika. So all in all, I think we have a very good team. Is there anybody else that we could potentially pick up from the free agency market? I don't think so. I think that at this point, you know, it would have to be a very, very surprise cut. And who knows, you know, there were definitely some teams that really shocked us here. And when you look at the free agency market, there were some decent players out there in free agency. You're looking at Derek Carr was out there as a potential backup, but we do have Winston, and we got Hendon Hooker, who's coming over from the system that Ben Johnson, you know, really coached. So having someone like Hooker, I think, isn't a bad idea there. We could have went running back, grabbing some good veterans there, but no one felt good there. I almost thought about bringing Odell Beckham Jr. back, but I think the mixture of wide receivers that we have are both young, versatile, and are ready to roll. Based on the highlights that we have here, the wide receivers were doing some work. Rashid Shaheed is a boss. So there really wasn't anything too crazy that made me feel like it was time to bring another person on. The D-line, I think, is in a really good spot. It lets me know there are tons of defensive tackles out there and defensive ends, but there isn't anybody that really made me want to grab another player. There was a player that was surprisingly cut from a team, and it was from the Eagles. And I think with that decision there, you know, I then have to now trim a little bit more off the practice squad. And you know, before I talk about this person here, I want to think about who are we going to cut, and I think we're going to go ahead and cut a right tackle. He's 6'8", 309 pounds, out of Boston College. Just didn't really fit with what we wanted to do here. Trapilo was drafted in the 5th round by us. So maybe we don't cut him. Kind of thinking this out loud here. If we were to cut someone from the practice squad, it would probably have to be, and this is unfortunate because I'm a fan of him, Penn State Kalen King. He just won't make the team here, and it's so super necessary to do that because the player that was surprisingly cut, and he was surprisingly cut from a rival team in our division, it is right outside linebacker Nolan Smith. So there is a huge chance that Nolan Smith is not only going to make the practice squad for now, there is a chance that I bring this guy up really, really soon. I'm hoping we can do that, get him in the right spot, allow ourselves to lean on a player like him, and I'm super excited to what he can do. Right, we got Hoecht and stuff, and maybe he makes the, he could be around, but he's a decent filler for now, and I think Nolan Smith could, just letting him attack could be really, really good for us. There were some corners I thought about bringing in to kind of round out the group, but I think the young crew that we have is just fine. I didn't want to touch the safeties. I thought the safeties where we're at right now are just fine. We got Pinnock, we got Makuba, the rookie, and then you got Tyler Newbin and Dane Belton on the other side. So we got a good group of players in that area there. Now that I think about it, there is another spot that I could move on from, and as much as I wanted to keep him, I'm starting to realize that I can't. And I have two kickers on my team. Harrison Mevis was on the practice squad, and as much as I like to keep him, I think it's best that we move on from him and let him find another team potentially. And by doing that, we are going to have enough room here to actually bring on Nolan Smith. So that's actually pretty interesting right there. Nolan Smith, to me, is a very, very good player. We'll have him play special teams for now, but this is huge for us. Having a guy like him could really work out. And awesome enough, we can actually move Harrison Mevis to the practice squad again. So we actually were able to make room here. It's kind of weird dialoguing this stuff as you all looking at the highlights, but I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit, not get too crazy with it. But I think we got a good group, and I'm really looking forward to the next season here. So I actually made a little bit of a mistake. I realized that I was cutting a lot of players off the team, and then I didn't realize that I had way too many wide receivers on the active roster. So knowing that, we're going to go ahead and bring up certain players that I feel pretty confident about at this time. Oshwan Mathis is going to help out the D-line there to give us a little bit more depth in that space. I think that's a guy that I feel pretty proud of, and I think can really help us out down the road. I also want to go ahead and move back up Ohio State center Seth McLaughlin to give me some interior help just in case in that space. And knowing that we have that, there were some players that I felt like just didn't do enough during the preseason to warrant a spot. And the players that I'm looking at moving on, putting in the practice squad are Harrell, as well as much as I thought he was a pretty decent player, and he's got ties to Mr. Shadur Sanders in Colorado, is Jimmy Horn Jr. He's got the speed to him. I just don't think he's ready yet to really do some work. So we're going to put him on the practice squad for now, which allows us to have a little bit more room in that space. So we're actually going to be coming out with 7 wide receivers on the active roster. Is that crazy? Is that surprising? Maybe a little bit, but I feel like that's actually not a bad move there, because I feel like that's going to give me some room to hopefully get these guys going in the right direction there. So we're going to have some pretty good diversity in the practice squad now. Some more weapons that we could decide to bring up. Now, by that happening there, there is a guy that is a Badger that's in the background that isn't going to be necessarily on the depth chart there. But having 7 wide receivers on the roster, we can get very, very creative with the formations and getting some of these guys going. So that's where we stand at this time. So before we start our season, I wanted to introduce the 53-man roster. We are going to have Andrew Thomas at left tackle with Runyon. John Michael Schmitz is going to be there, hopefully for the long haul, and really solidify that interior line. Dylan Radune's coming over from Tennessee. He's had some injury issues during preseason, but I think he'll be just fine. And we got Illuminor there. Now with Illuminor, we're going to let Evan Neal play right tackle, backup right tackle. I'm going to trust it. We got 4 tackles there. I think that's going to be okay. We only have 2 tight ends on the active roster, Theo Johnson and Bellinger, with Lewepke playing that tight end number 3. Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 1 with Rashid Shaheed at 2. We have Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. Bryce Ford Wheaton has earned a spot. He had a pretty good preseason. And then there's our second rounder there in Torrey Horton, who I believe is going to be pretty good down the road. We just got to figure out a way to get him going. But I think Torrey Horton's going to be just fine playing in the slot for now. Devin Singletary and Tracy, along with Gray at running back. And then our starting quarterback is Shedeur Sanders. I feel like he's earned it. He played pretty well for us during the preseason. And to me, he's a guy that could be pretty solid. I think with the way we have our offense right now, honestly, he is doing all the right things. We even had him play a full game, and he had almost 200 yards. So I know with where we have and the players that we got, I think, and the strategy we have, I think we're going to be just fine. On the defensive side, I don't really feel Makuba has earned it yet, but he is going to be playing behind Jason Pinnock in the free safety role with Newman and Belton on the strong safety. The linebacking group, McFadden, I thought played very well for us during the preseason. It was a good battle between him and Muasau, but I think that's going to work out. And then we got Sandberg all over the place. I think he earned his spot, and having to play on the outside is going to really be nice. Him and Nolan Smith playing that special teams role, it's going to be pretty freaking cool. The corners, I think Stokes and Banks looked pretty good during preseason. We got Hawkins there, and then our rookie, late round rookie Karan Prunty looked really good from NCAA. So he's going to be on the outside from time to time, kind of helping us out with substitutes, and hopefully that ends up working out there. And the defensive line, Joseph Asai, Dexter Lawrence, Elijah Chapman, with Elijah Simmons, Oshwan Mathis, and Jared Ivey there. I think that's a good crew. So this line's going to be pretty solid. We're going to have some good edge pressure there, and hopefully with Simmons next to Lawrence, I think that's going to really help knock that piece out there. Matt Arisa is our punter there, along with Graham Gano. He earned it. I think he's going to be just fine in that spot there. Tracy's going to be our kick returner, and then I actually decided to move Torrey Horton to our punt returner to give him a little more action there when possible. On the specialist roles, Andrew Phillips is our starting slot with Cordell Flott and Trey Hawkins behind him. Burns with our rush package is on one end, with Dexter Lawrence, Elijah Chapman in the interior, and Kayvon Thibodeau on the opposite side. Okereke, Muasau, and Sanborn will be our sub linebackers. Singletary is going to be the third down back, and then I'm kind of hesitant, but I want to get Tracy going. We're going to have him play I'd actually do this. We're going to have Tracy play the third down back with Singletary playing power back there. So slot receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, Bryce Ford Wheaton, and Torrey Horton. I think these are very good players there to really help us out. And as we talked about before, right, the practice squad is settled. Halfback there in Johnson Jr. You got Jimmy Horn, Harrell at wide receiver, Cameron Latu, El Hadi, James, Trapilo, Bahoko, Ika, James, Smith, and Mevis as our practice squad guys. So pretty good players. Looking forward to this season. I think we got a good group of guys, man. Honestly, it's really worked out for us. And I think this is going to be a really fun one. As far as some other trades, before we head to the regular season here, it looks like there were some other moves here in week 4. Nothing too crazy. It looks like the Panthers traded Jamie Sheriff to the Jets, along with the future 7th round pick for Tutu Atwell. So the Jets sent Tutu Atwell to the Panthers. That's going to be kind of an interesting one there. So we went ahead and put in a new draft class. This is from Jack Move 619 or 916. So just a heads up on that one. We are going to use a real draft class. Currently right now in that draft class, I do not see Archie Manning in there. And although that's his first year he's eligible, there's a chance he can stay in another year. Really get good in college. Prep himself to be ready for the NFL. Get a little bit stronger. And who knows, maybe he transfers to another team in college before he decides to come out. So, you know, he can make quite a bit of money there, kind of grow his brand and everything. So in 2026, that draft class doesn't look too crazy yet, but we'll learn more and more about them along the way. But yeah, it's going to be a good one. I think what I'd like to show real quick is our schedule, if possible. I think we can kind of look at that for now. And here are the teams that we'll be playing against this year. First game will be against Caleb Williams and the Bears. Then we have the Raiders. We need to know who they got. Carson Beck as their new QB. Commanders, so Jaden Daniels will get a chance to go against him in week number 3 at their house. Followed by the Cowboys, Lions, Broncos, Chargers. We get Commanders again right before the bye. Then we go against the Patriots, led by Drake May. The Vikings, Falcons, Cardinals, Chiefs, Packers, Eagles, Cowboys, and then Eagles. So we got a crazy group at the end, and hopefully we can make that work there. So that's a very strong schedule. It is a kind of scary schedule, but to me, you know, when it comes to where we're at right now, this is still a very young team. Ben Johnson is a new coach, but I think 7 games is worthy of where we stand now. So that's pretty much where we're going to leave it at this time, everybody. I really appreciate it when you stop by. If you like what you saw, please drop a like, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and most importantly, subscribe to keep up with the series. Definitely looking forward to the year, the 2025-2026 season, and the future's bright for the Big Blue. As always, excuse me, let's go Giants. Have a good one.